Right now, sealed inside a congressional vault, there are photographs that could shake the very foundation of federal law enforcement. Dark, tense background music begins. These aren't rumors. They're not AI fabrications or whispered political gossip. They are real, documented pieces of evidence now sitting in the hands of congressional investigators. People who have been quietly waiting for the precise moment to bring them into the light. To grasp how explosive this moment in Washington really is, you have to look closely at the two men captured in those photographs. Both of them were just convicted by a federal jury of running a sprawling $30 million criminal enterprise. We're talking about a highly sophisticated racketeering operation involving Medicare fraud, visa manipulation, and an extensive web of money laundering. The sentences they now face could add up to nearly 400 years behind bars. But here's the detail that has stunned investigators. During the exact period when this criminal empire was operating, those same two men were photographed celebrating the appointment of the director of the FBI, Kash Patel. Music drops to a low, rhythmic pulse. Pause and let that land. They weren't anonymous faces lost in the background of a crowded arena. They weren't random bystanders in a sea of people. The images show them clearly, comfortably, and publicly celebrating with the man who leads the most powerful law enforcement agency in the world. And what makes this situation truly unprecedented is how those photos surfaced. They didn't quietly appear after the guilty verdicts. They weren't leaked from some hidden archive. They were proudly shared. While federal investigators were building a massive criminal case against these brothers, the very targets of that investigation were posing alongside the top leadership of the FBI and making sure everyone saw it. Right now, behind closed doors, oversight committees, legal scholars, and veteran federal prosecutors are all circling the same haunting question. What exactly did the director of the FBI know about the men standing beside him? And when did he know it? The facts already proven in federal court are staggering. This was not a small-time scheme that spiraled out of control. Untangling the brothers' $30 million fraud network required years of painstaking forensic work. It stretched across multiple jurisdictions. It demanded complex financial tracing and relentless investigative pressure. The scale of the racketeering charges reflects an operation that was deeply organized and carefully concealed. And yet, during the very same years this criminal enterprise was thriving, the men behind it were cultivating a visible, documented relationship with the sitting director of the FBI. Pacing slows, voice grows heavier. According to insiders, the director's legal team never anticipated anything like this. And behind the scenes, they are now scrambling to prepare for a storm that is already rolling in. If you watch how the mainstream press is framing the story, one word keeps appearing again and again. Optics. They describe the situation as embarrassing. A public relations disaster. A bad look for the Bureau. But calling this a bad look completely misses the magnitude of what's happening. These weren't blurry paparazzi photos snapped by accident at a crowded gala. These were celebratory images that the convicted racketeers themselves broadcast proudly. They wanted people to see them. They were advertising the connection. When individuals convicted of a $30 million fraud scheme publicly display their access to the head of the FBI, the possibilities narrow down to two deeply troubling realities. Either they truly had a relationship that gave them the confidence to flaunt that proximity, which opens the door to terrifying implications, or they were pretending to have influence they didn't actually possess. But even if that second explanation were true, another question immediately appears. How did they get close enough to the director in the first place? Neither possibility survives without a brutal, microscopic examination of every interaction that occurred. The photographs alone are explosive, but they don't exist in isolation. They sit alongside a unanimous federal conviction and a timeline that overlaps almost perfectly with the years this criminal enterprise was operating. You can spin a press statement. You can reshape a narrative. But you cannot rewrite court records. And tonight, the congressional investigators drafting their inquiries are not working with rumors. They are working with legally established facts. Music swells slightly with urgency. Inside FBI headquarters, the mood is beginning to shift. Sources familiar with the Bureau's internal culture say the atmosphere is unlike anything they've seen before. It isn't defensive. It's anxious. Veteran agents understand exactly how congressional oversight unfolds. They know the photographs are not the end of the investigation. They are the beginning. A photograph proves two people were in the same place. Subpoenas reveal what they were saying. and the most powerful subpoenas haven't even been issued yet. Investigators are preparing demands for personal emails, encrypted text messages, meeting logs, calendar entries, and phone records from the exact window when these racketeers were earning millions while celebrating their connection to the director. Those subpoenas are coming. And inside the director's inner circle, an aggressive damage control effort is already underway. Reports suggest that social media posts began disappearing almost immediately after the guilty verdicts were announced. Internal reviews of calendars and communications were launched at lightning speed. Every email, every message, every meeting. They are trying to reconstruct the entire relationship. Resources normally focused on national security are now being diverted toward one urgent question. How deep does this go? Because the calculation inside the director's orbit has already shifted. The photos are no longer the problem. They're already public. The real fear is what Congress will uncover when it pulls the digital trail. Pacing quickens, tension rising. What do the meeting logs show? How often did contact occur? What was the real nature of the relationship between the nation's top law enforcement official and men running a massive criminal operation? This is the angle many observers are missing. A $30 million racketeering enterprise doesn't run on luck. It requires coordination, discipline, and a level of secrecy designed specifically to evade federal investigators. For years, that strategy worked. The operation expanded. The money flowed. And the empire grew. Which leads investigators to a chilling question. Was this access simply social clout? Was it a calculated move to create the illusion of protection, something that might intimidate lower-level agents from digging deeper? Or does it point to something far more consequential? Experienced prosecutors know one thing for certain. Sophisticated criminals do not accidentally drift into proximity with federal leadership. It's deliberate. It's strategic. When people running a massive fraud network make the conscious decision to display their access to the nation's top cop, they are doing it for a reason. The question now echoing through Washington is simple. Did it work? Did it discourage scrutiny? Did it shield the operation from detection? Lawmakers want answers, and they now have evidence strong enough to force the issue. Voice lowers, calm but serious. The constitutional stakes are enormous. The director of the FBI carries a strict obligation to ensure that personal associations never compromise investigations or give criminal networks even the appearance of influence. Congress has full authority to determine whether that line was crossed. And the subpoena clock is ticking. Once that machinery starts moving, there's no selective disclosure. Investigators don't receive curated documents. They receive everything, every record, every communication. And if the explanations currently offered to the public fail to match the cold evidence contained in those files, that's where the real danger begins. Because in Washington, it's often not the initial controversy that destroys careers. It's the cover-up. This situation has formed a trap with three unmovable walls. The first wall is the photographic evidence. The second wall is the federal jury conviction confirming a massive criminal enterprise. The third wall is the timeline that links the two together. You can debate what a photo represents, but you cannot claim the photo doesn't exist. You can try to reinterpret a meeting, but you cannot erase a racketeering conviction. You can argue that the timing was coincidental, but you cannot delete the calendar. And it isn't only Congress watching this unfold. Career officials inside the FBI, the people who have spent decades protecting the Bureau's credibility, are witnessing the situation with growing alarm. Slow, deliberate delivery. The entire authority of the FBI rests on one central belief: that its leadership cannot be influenced by the criminal networks it pursues. When images circulate showing convicted racketeers celebrating their access to the director, that belief cracks. Defense attorneys across the country immediately recognize the opportunity. Every federal case built on FBI evidence now faces a new line of attack. Questions about institutional integrity. Questions about leadership. Questions about influence. The ripple effects reach backward into investigations from the past and forward into prosecutions yet to come. And now the countdown has begun. Sooner or later, the director will be sitting in front of a microphone, under oath, answering questions before Congress. The machinery of oversight is already in motion. Records are being gathered. Phones are being examined. Timelines are being rebuilt. And one question will hang in the air. How does the director of the FBI explain a documented public connection to men who were running a $30 million criminal empire? Every statement released today will eventually be measured against the phone logs and digital records of tomorrow. The gap between those two realities, the narrative and the data, is where this story will either stabilize or explode into a scandal no political shield can contain. The evidence exists. The door has been unlocked, and Congress is about to look at everything that happened behind the camera.